Look at all the fun we're having here today in the shop. Yep, that's right. The transmission is out. Well, almost out. I wasn't able to get the transmission cooling lines off of the transmission because one of them is hopelessly stuck on there. So that is coming out with those attached, which is great. One thing that they don't tell you in the manual is you really ought to support the back of the engine. So I took care of that. And the manual, by the way, has all kinds of wonderful, helpful hints in here, but these instructions are written for a V8 car because there are different numbers of bolts that they refer to that do not apply or don't have enough of application for the 6-cylinder version. But it's out. Took about probably about a half a day. I stopped and started and didn't start early and had a visitor during the day, so I figure it's about a half-day job to get that out. And I got myself a brand spanking new transmission jack from our friends at Hobo Freight. $129 worth of joy there. It's actually a pretty nice piece, I can't complain. Harbor Freight seems to have really stepped up their game here lately. From the last couple of things I've purchased, I'm pretty pleased. So tomorrow we'll drag that out from underneath the car, clean up this debris field of tools that I have, clean up the ATF that I've spilled everywhere. I'm sure I'm not done spilling that. And then have a look at the transmission and see if it is truly the front seal that's leaking. I'm 90% sure that's what's going on. And we'll go from there. Transmission is out. And this is after the first round of cleaning. It was just thick as thieves with gack and grease and just detritus. It was really horrible. But it still has a ways to go, so I'm going to have to manually do this. Just sprayed it and hosed it earlier after chiseling all the thick stuff off, but we're going to take the brush and the parts cleaner fluid to it, I think, next and try to clean it up a little bit more because it's just still pretty disgusting. I did get the cooler lines loose, undamaged, which is great. And picking up a new front seal for it today. Local Napa actually has it in stock. So we will pop that guy in there. And hopefully that solves our leak. While I'm waiting for parts to arrive, I decided to tackle this thing that I've been putting off. I do not enjoy welding. You can see here the portion of the patch that I put in. And I still have to make this upper part and then weld that in. Men better than I could probably have made that a one-piece patch, but the problem is that it's so complex. There's so many bends and curvatures to it. You know, there's a bend here that goes up. So there's an angle that goes across here. This is curved in. And then, of course, there's a curve here, but it goes on an angle. It's just a very complex piece to try to make. I did the other side in 2 pieces, and that seemed to work out pretty well. So I'm doing the same thing here. It just makes everything a little bit more simple. Trying to bend 16 gauge metal without a break is not the easiest thing in the world. So there's my lovely weld job. Again, not a good welder. but it's good enough to make it strong again, so mission accomplished. Here's the completed torque box patch. Just wanted to follow through completely on that. It's not the prettiest, of course, but we're just going for function. A couple drives in some dirt roads and some mud. Nobody will ever know that's there. Alright, here's the front transmission seal, which is what I believe is leaking. This is the original one, obviously. This one has a extra flange around it that'll stop you from pushing it in too far. The replacement does not. However, it is the correct size. It matches the original. So this is the replacement. That's the part number for Napa. So we're going to give it a shot and see if that solves our massive transmission leak. Now, if you need to drive the seal in on the transmission, you can go to your local hardware store and get yourself a handy seal driver, such as this, which is just a sleeve over a piece of pipe. Just take your seal with you, find the right diameter connector here, and then get a length of pipe cut that'll fit over that shaft. This one's unnecessarily long, but they sell it by the foot, so that was fine. And just slide them together and hammer on the end here, and it'll drive the seal in. Well, welcome to hell, also known as working on the Falcon. The new master cylinder has arrived, and trying to get that replaced, but of course we're running into problems. And the problems actually are twofold here. First is, predictably, one of the line fittings doesn't want to come off without bending or snapping the metal line. So I'm trying to get that loose currently. I don't know how successful I'll be. And of course it's, you know, the line that runs the whole way across. It's not going to be a short one. So that's nice. A line that, again, will be replaced eventually when I go to the dual circuit master and the disc brakes. So there's that. But wait, there's more. We're underneath the dashboard now, and this is the master cylinder coming inside the car. When I went to pull the boot back, got a bunch of fluid draining out of it. So this master cylinder is definitely shot, despite its relatively new appearance on the outside. It's junk. And now I'm trying to get this off, and the problem I'm running into is there's a pin that holds the pivot for that to the pedal. That, of course, won't come out. This is like the first fitting on this car that I really had a problem getting loose, and it's not budging at all. So I disconnected the pedal at the top to try to get the whole pedal out so I can work on it on the bench, but now I can't get the brake light switch to come off and to release that pivot arm for the master cylinder. So it's like everything's conspiring to not come apart, which is annoying. And in the process of doing that, the brake pedal pad decided to disintegrate and won't stay on anymore, so that's fun. So another parts order is, of course, impending. Well, our still grungy C4 transmission is now back in the car with its new front pump seal. And it went in pretty well. Got everything hooked up, got it refilled, ran the car, cycled it through the gears, got the fluid all moved around in there and back up to level. Did not have any leaks on the floor. Everything was great. Parked it and let it sit because it was leaking when it was parked, not when it was running for the most part. So I let that sit overnight, and not being stupid, I put the drain pan underneath it. But I also put some newspaper there to make sure that I could tell if it was leaking anything new. Well, it still leaks. And I finally have found out what the problem was, and it's a very frustrating thing because this could have been fixed when I had the transmission out. And I had a bad feeling about this, if I'm being completely honest. But I'm not afraid to admit my failures. So, as you can see here at the front, there's a little drain spot here for anything to come out of the bell housing, and there's no red there. There's no red transmission fluid. There's a little oil from the rear main that weeps, but that's it. But back here, you can see we've got it shedding blood quite readily. And what we've got, if I can get in here without giving you too much shadow, is it's coming out of the seam here between the bell housing and the transmission case. There's kind of a giant O-ring type thing that's in there that seals the bell housing to the case. And this is not like a manual transmission where it's just a bell housing that, you know, bolts on, and all its whole purpose is just to hold the transmission to the engine. This actually is a seal between the two pieces where hydraulic fluid runs. So that has to come apart and a new O-ring put in there and so on, and that requires a little bit of transmission disassembly, not much. But of course the joyous part is we get to take the transmission out again. How delightful. Now, especially considering that this transmission is probably not going to stay, like everything else with this car, as we head towards the V8 conversion, and you can see just how bad it's leaking. This thing's temporary. And it's becoming increasingly annoying and preying on my brain that I keep fixing things that aren't going to stay. So the logic of this is, you know, questionable. If you're following in my footsteps and you intend to get a car like this and do a swap from a 6 to an 8 or whatever it may be, you know, think ahead a little bit. Are you really going to want to go through all of this just to have the thing drivable for a period of time? I know me, and I know that I prefer to be able to use something like this in the interim while I'm, you know, putting together an engine and transmission for it and a new rear axle. So there's a lot of work to do there. I mean, I don't even have a donor engine yet, although I think I've tracked one down, and I do not have a replacement C4 either at this point. So there's still a lot to do. So what are we going to do? Are we going to take this trans out and fix that and put it back in, or are we going to try to get another transmission? And, you know, what do you do? The problem with getting another C4 for the V8 is the bell housings are different. They're swappable, but that still means that this trans has to come out and bell housing has to be swapped around, and you have to do that multiple times. So I'm kind of torn right now if I want to proceed forward with doing anything with this or not. Another thing that I discovered while under here was the kickdown is here, and the adjustment on that looks like it's fairly towards the end. The kickdown does not work at all. I don't know if the cable is stretched, but it's got way too much slack in it, and that looked like it was seized up, so I've been spraying it, trying to get it loose. We'll try adjusting it and see if it works, but this car has currently no kickdown function, even though it is hooked up, because there's just way too much slack in this cable here. All right, and on to the next and final problem. All right, as mentioned previously, the steering box in this car is very suspect. It does not turn smoothly, and it does not want to return to center even with the proper alignment. So decided that it's got to get replaced. I was able to locate what I believe is a power steering ratio box. Now, these boxes with power steering on these cars do not have direct power steering. There's no fittings that go to the steering box. It's all done with a RAM system that doesn't work and leaks constantly. They were just a bad design. But the steering boxes are interchangeable, and the only difference in them is the ratio. It's a quicker ratio with the power steering than the manual. So I wanted to do that. Yes, the steering effort will be heavier, but I think it's probably worth doing just to get more responsive steering out of this car. The only other option at this point would be to go with a rack and pinion, and that involves changing the column and all sorts of other things that I don't really want to do if it's not necessary. So found a used box. I'm going to be getting that in about a week, and then we're going to replace that in here, which that should be a joyous thing to do as well, because we're going to take the column out and all that. So that is the final piece of the puzzle that we have to do along with all this other stuff. So it is currently the end of September here in the Northeast, and the driving season is quickly disappearing. So I don't know if we're going to get this thing all back together and on the road here before winter weather hits. I mean, it's all doable, but there's a lot to do, and my desire to take that transmission out right now is pretty low. So, so that's where we are with this old car project. Fun times. That's going to do it for this installment. I'll check back again after we got the steering box and maybe be putting that in. I don't know how we're going to do with this project here. I have a bad feeling I'm going to be making a line to go across the firewall. Yippee-ki-yay. Yes, fun stuff. So that's going to do it. I am headed off to the Falcon Regional today without a car yet again, just to see what's there and talk to some folks. So we'll be talking to you maybe in a little while. I don't know when the next installment's actually going to drop. I gotta have to accomplish some things first. So if you don't see anything for a while, don't panic. It just means I'm accumulating parts and getting my ambition back. So thanks for watching as always. Take care. Talk to you soon.